Recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Westmoreland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here and going through this process. The CFPB put out a statement and trying to tell the consumers about not paying the minimum on a credit card. It said, you know, pay your debt off quicker, because if you pay the minimum, the debt's just going to continue to build, and so they recommend paying the most you can. If you compare that to, if you look at a home loan, let's say at $100,000 at 5% interest, 30-year fixed rate's going to be about $550 a month. A 15-year be about $800 a month. You would pay a total interest of $93,000 on a 30-year, $42,000 for the interest on a 15-year. So is this something that you would, you know, is the 30-year fixed something that is making it so easy for people to assume all this debt rather than getting a shorter-term loan? Anybody?
All right. Well, I'll pick that up. Yes, indeed, you're pointing to something very important, and that is the question of leverage. People who take a 30-year fixed-rate loan, or any kind of 30-year loan, are in a position where they are not actually accumulating any equity or very much equity in the house for the first 6 or 7 years. Most people then move after 6 or 7 years, so they haven't accumulated much. The question always comes down to this, and that is, what is the monthly cost in relation to the size of the home? And what we are doing with 30-year mortgages, by reducing the monthly cost with less amortization, we are encouraging people to buy bigger homes. What people should be thinking about is the same thing you mentioned with the credit card, and that is they should be buying a house that enables them to get equity as soon as possible, and that is with a shorter term, not with a 30-year term, and to pay as much of the principal as they can in terms of the size of the home. We don't necessarily have to persuade people to buy the biggest home they can possibly buy with whatever they have available to spend on a mortgage.
That was beautifully said, and I just want to emphasize the flip side to that transaction is lenders who have private capital at risk are going to take the argument Peter just made and give good counsel to borrowers and say, you know, this really isn't the house that you should be buying. It is too much. And in a system that used private capital just to screen risks and make sure wise decisions are being made, you'll get better information on both sides of that transaction.
I would agree with everything that's been said so far, but I would add in this. The credit card analogy is problematic for two reasons. Number one, credit cards are now pretty much all variable rate. And whether you want, and that means that the consumer is taking on the risk that interest rates go up. With a fixed rate mortgage, it may be advantageous not to prepay sometimes. On the other hand, you can prepay your credit card whenever you want. You can pay off the whole balance. You don't have to pay the minimum. That gives you an option. That option is really valuable because you might have an unexpected expense in a month when you don't want to have to make a larger payment. The 30-year fixed rate mortgage basically builds in that option. You can always prepay. You can make that larger payment and pay down the debt, and that's often the smart thing to do, but you have the flexibility. And that's one of the real consumer benefits of the 30-year fixed rate.
Now, I want to make a broader point about the sort of, all of this takes context and obviously the housing market. So let's even think about the height of the bubble in 2006, 2007. We added less than 2% to the total stock of housing. So part of the problem here is that supply is relatively fixed in the short run. And if Adam and I are bidding against the same house and you keep raising the amount we can borrow, one of us is just going to bid higher and higher. This is great for the home seller, great for, you know, the real estate industry. It's not so great for Adam and I. And a better world would be Adam and I agree we're not going to bid each other up. And unfortunately, we're in a bad equilibrium. So how do you get past this where people that are struggling don't have to bid higher and higher prices for housing? At the end of the day, a lot of these subsidies in the mortgage market just go to the seller of the house, not the buyer.
Mr. Zandy, I'm not trying to keep you from answering, but I would like to say that if these if it did come about that the shorter-term mortgages came out, people could still buy houses. They might not just be able to buy as big a house is what they want. And same thing with credit card debt. It depends on what your limit is.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Missouri.